Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Ashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 19, Lord Vamandev begs charity from Bali Maharaj. Text number 21 onwards. So yesterday we saw how Vamandev first glorified Bali Maharaj and then he asked for 3 paces of land. And he said, with my steps, 3 paces, but my steps. And Bali Maharaj was like, what are you asking? I can give you an island. I can give you a whole planet. Everything is under my control. But now Vamandev will start speaking. Text 21. Shri Bhagwan Vacha Yavanto Vishya Preshta Strilokyam Jitendriyam Na Shaknuvanti Te Sarve Pratipuritum Nripa. The personality of Godhead said, O my dear king, even the entirety of whatever there may be within the 3 worlds, to satisfy one's senses cannot satisfy a person whose senses are uncontrolled. Very, very important instruction for all of us. That even if we get everything within the 3 worlds, but if your senses are not in control, we cannot be satisfied. That's what the same thing Prahlad Maharaj told Hiranyakashipu, that if your senses are not in control, you cannot be happy. Sada samudvigna diyam sadgriha. Samudvigna. Udvigna. Udvigna means the sense is always disturbed. And samudvigna means completely disturbed. And nothing else left. The material world is an illusory energy to deviate the living entities from the path of self-realization. Anyone who is in this material world is extremely anxious to get more and more things for sense gratification. Actually, however, the purpose of life is not sense gratification, but self-realization. Therefore, those who are too addicted to sense gratification are advised to practice the mystic yoga system or Ashtanga yoga system, consisting of Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahara, and so on. In this way, one can control the senses. The purpose of controlling the senses is to stop one's implication in the cycle of birth and death. So this is why one should control the senses. And without sense control, and mind also is one of the senses, one cannot make progress in any yoga system. Any yoga system. Ashtanga yoga, Jnana yoga, Dhyana yoga, Bhakti yoga, one cannot. And the purpose of life is not to keep on trying to gratify the senses, which is impossible to do anyway. The purpose of life is self-realization, as Prabhupada says. As stated by Rishabdev, Nunam Brahmatta Kurute Vikarma. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he suddenly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it is not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he perpetually gets material bodies, one after another. So get more and more involved in activities of sense gratification. It just keeps a person more and more and more in the one body after. Because sense gratification means trying to fulfill the desires of the senses, which nobody can. One desire is fulfilled, 10 more desires creep up. And then we continue to fulfill those desires. And at the end of life, some desires are completely fulfilled, some are unfulfilled, some are partially fulfilled. So those desires which are partially fulfilled or unfulfilled, then there goes, that's the next life. Next life we try to satisfy those, fulfill those desires. And every sense has so many desires. Actually, in a way, we can say that senses are dull matter. Senses cannot have desires, but soul wants to gratify those sense objects through those senses, and mind is the storehouse of all the desires. And mind goes with us. Subtle body goes with the soul to the next body. Thus, according to Rishabdev, the human beings in this material world are just like madmen, engaged in activities which they should not perform, but which they do perform only for sense gratification. Such activities are not good because in this way one creates another body for his next life as punishment for his nefarious activities. And as soon as he gets another body, he is put into repeated suffering in material existence. There you go. Therefore, the Vedic culture or Brahminical culture teaches one how to be satisfied with possessing the minimum necessities of life. Now, that minimum necessities can vary from person to person, and it also varies from as we grow spiritually. The necessities really go down. To teach this highest culture, Varnashram Dharma is recommended. The aim of Varnashram divisions, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanprastha, and Sannyas, is to train one to control the senses and be content with the bare necessities. Here, Lord Vamandev, as an ideal brahmachari, refuses Bali Maharaj's offer to give him anything he might want. He says that without contentment, one cannot be happy, even if he possesses the property of the entire world or the entire universe. So that contentment, satisfaction is the most important thing in life. So indirectly, he is telling Bali Maharaj, you got the whole universe, but you cannot be happy even if you got the whole universe. In human society, therefore, the Brahminical culture, Kshatriya culture, and Vaishya culture must be maintained, and people must be taught how to be satisfied with only what they need. In modern civilization, there is no such education. Everyone tries to possess more and more, and everyone is dissatisfied and unhappy. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore establishing various forms, especially in America, to show how to be happy and content with minimum necessities of life and to save time for self-realization, which one can very easily achieve by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So that's all we need. Very little to survive actually. Minimum necessities of life. Okay, sure. In the beginning, we might have too many necessities. No, this is also important. That is also important. But as we make progress, and Krishna also keeps on taking things away from us. So ultimately, we are just left with what we need, not what we want. And then one can chant properly, or when he chants properly, and then slowly, the needs go down and down and down. So all these four activities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, as we grow spiritually, all these activities, they automatically go down. It's very simple, actually. Tribhikrams kramer santushto dvipe napi napuriyate navavarsha sametena sapta dvipa varechaya. If I were not satisfied with 3 paces of land, then surely I would not be satisfied, even with possessing one of the 7 islands consisting of 9 varshas. Even if I possessed one island, I would hope to get others. So this is Lord Vamandev there. If I'm not satisfied with little, I will never be satisfied with lot. And just like say, then I would want one of the 7 islands, and now I would want other islands also, because this greed never goes away. Swapta dvipadipateyo dripa vanya gayadaya artha kamera gatanantam trishnaya itina shutam. We have heard that although powerful kings like Maharaj Prithu and Maharaj Gaya achieved proprietorship over the 7 dvipas, they could not achieve satisfaction or find the end of their ambitions. Yadrichopapannena santushto vartate sukham asantushta stribhirloker ajitatma upsadita. One should be satisfied with whatever he achieves by his previous destiny, for discontent can never bring happiness. A person who's not self-controlled will not be happy even with possessing the 3 worlds. If happiness is the ultimate goal of life, one must be satisfied with the position in which he is placed by providence. This instruction is also given by Prahlad. Sukham endriya kamadetya. My dear sons, born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived with reference to the sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life, according to one's past fruitive activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. This philosophy is perfect in regard to obtaining happiness. So, even Prahlad Maharaj said in his instructions, one cannot get even a drop of happiness more than what is he destined for. So why we are so worried about getting happiness, getting pleasure? Just like we get the distress without asking for it. Nobody asks for, oh Krishna, I've lived very happily so far. Now give me some troubles, some distresses, some problems. Nobody does that. Just like distresses come on their own, at their own time, so will the happiness will. So be the happiness. It will come. So we don't have to run after it. Real happiness is described in Bhagavad-Gita. Sukham atyantikam yatpat buddhi grayam atindriyam. In the spiritually joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth. One has to perceive happiness by the super senses. The super senses are not the senses of the material elements. Every one of us is a spiritual being, and every one of us is an individual person. Our senses are now covered by material elements, and because of ignorance, we consider the material senses that cover us to be our real senses. See, Prabhupada gives some hint of our individuality or our identity. Our senses are now covered by material elements. Means our super senses, he used this word, super senses. So that means the spiritual senses. Means the soul has spiritual senses. Means the soul has spiritual body. It's not just a point of light. It has spiritual form, even though it is 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair. So these senses, the spiritual senses, they start to grow when we are engaged in spiritual activities. Means our spiritual body starts growing and the material body starts shrinking. Outside shape will look the same. Now, no, it doesn't mean that our kidneys will start shrinking and the liver will start to go away. I'm not saying that. Those are just the organs of the material body. But the subtle material body starts shrinking because the spiritual body is growing within. So when the spiritual body has grown to the right extent, to the right size, then when we leave this body, the spiritual body goes back to the spiritual world. Then we don't belong here anymore. This is what Prabhupada is indirectly saying. He didn't say it this way, but this is what happens. The real senses, however, are within the material covering. Within the covering of the material elements are the spiritual senses. When the spiritual senses are uncovered, by these senses we can be happy, and we can be really happy. Satisfaction of the spiritual senses is thus described. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktirachyate. When the senses are engaged in devotional service to Rishikesh, then the senses are completely satisfied. Without this superior knowledge of sense gratification, one may try to satisfy its material senses. But happiness will never be possible. One may increase his ambition for sense gratification and even achieve what he desires for the gratification of his senses. But because this is on the material platform, he will never achieve satisfaction and contentment. So material world, material senses, material endeavors, it will never bring the real happiness that the spiritual soul is looking for. According to Brahminical culture, one should be content with whatever he obtains without special endeavor and should cultivate spiritual consciousness. Then he will be happy. The purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is to spread this understanding. People who do not have scientific spiritual knowledge mistakenly think that the members of the Krishna consciousness movement are escapists, trying to avoid material activities. In fact, however, we are engaged in real activities for obtaining the ultimate happiness in life. If one is not trained to satisfy the spiritual senses and continues in material sense gratification, he will never obtain happiness that is eternal and blissful. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore recommends tapo divyam putrikayena sattvam. One must practice austerity so that his existential position will be purified and he will achieve unlimited blissful life. So unlimited blissful life is waiting us through tapasya. So we have to perform this tapasya. And by mercy of Prabhupada, he has made it very simple for us. It's not even, it doesn't even feel like tapasya. It feels like this wonderful activity to do. So bhakti process is like that. So we enjoy it while performing bhakti, and then we get to go back to the spiritual world and where we enjoy more. That's all. Unso ayam samsrite rahetu santosho arthakamayo yadrichyo papannena santosho mukte smritaha. Material existence causes discontent in regard to fulfilling one's lusty desires and achieving more and more money. This is a cause for the continuation of material life, which is full of repeated birth and death. But one who is satisfied by that which is obtained by destiny is fit for liberation from this material existence. So one who is satisfied by that which is obtained by destiny, but that doesn't mean we don't work. Work is always recommended. One should work, but not that hard for making money and cheating people and this working so hard. There is no time for spiritual growth or spiritual practices. That's not recommended anywhere. Yadricha lavastustya tejo viprasya vardate tat prashamyati asantosha dambha seva shushrukshani. A Brahman who is satisfied with whatever is providentially obtained is increasingly enlightened with spiritual power, but the spiritual potency of a dissatisfied Brahman decreases as fire diminishes in potency when water is sprinkled upon it. So a Brahman, one has to learn satisfaction. That is when he is in mode of goodness. And then his spiritual potency increases. Tasmat trihini padanyeva vrine tvad-varadarshaphat etavateva siddho aham vittam yavat prayojanam. Therefore, O king, from you, the best of those who give charity, I ask only 3 paces of land. By such a gift, I shall be very pleased, for the way of happiness is to be fully satisfied, to receive that which is absolutely needed, not more than that. Shri Shukvacha, iti yuktaha sahasannaha vanchata pratigriyata vamanaya mahim datum jagara jal bhajanam. Shukdev Goswami continued, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead had thus spoken to Bali Maharaj, Bali smiled and told him, all right, take whatever you like. He was completely convinced. To confirm this, his promise to give Vamandev the desired land, he then took up his water pot. Took up the water pot to do Achaman and then make the promise. Vishnave kshamam pradasyan antam ushna asureshwaram janash chikirshitam Vishnu shishyam prah vidamvara. Understanding Lord Vishnu's purpose, Shukracharya, the best of the learned, immediately spoke as follows to his disciple who was about to offer everything to Lord Vamandev. Shri Shukuvacha, Esha Vairo Chane Sakshat Bhagwan Vishnu Ravyaya Kashyap Adi Tite Jato Deva Nam Karya Sadhaka. Shukracharya said, O son of Virochan, this brahmachari in the form of a dwarf is directly the imperishable Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. Accepting Kashyap Muni as his father and Aditi as his mother, he has now appeared in order to fulfill the interests of the demigods. So Shukracharya is not an ordinary person. Very, very powerful and very exalted Brahman. See, he immediately recognized this is not an ordinary brahmachari, he is Lord Vishnu himself, who has appeared in order to fulfill the interests of demigods, especially Indra. Pratishrutam tvaya tasme yadanartham ajanata na sadhu manya dhaityanam mahanupagato anayaha. You do not know what a dangerous position you have accepted by promising to give him land. I do not think that this promise is good for you. It will bring great harm to the demons. So Shukracharya, because he had saved Bali Maharaj's life, he had brought him back to life, in fact. And the demons, and he's their guru, and he's saying this will bring great harm to the demons. So don't do it. Eshate sthanam aishwaryam shriyam tejo yashashrutam dasitya chidya chakraya maya manavapo. This person, falsely appearing as a brahmachari, is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who has come in this form to take away all your land, wealth, beauty, power, fame, and education. After taking everything from you, he will deliver it to Indra, your enemy. So Shukracharya is warning Bali Maharaj. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in this regard that the very word Hari means one who takes away. If one connects himself with Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord takes away all his miseries. And in the beginning, the Lord also superficially appears to take away all his material possessions because they bring misery only. And he takes away material possessions, reputation, education, and beauty. if they are obstacles on the path of bhakti. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasyaham anugrinami harishyat dhanam shanai. The Lord said to Maharaj Yudhishthir, the first installment of my mercy toward the devotee is that I take away all his possessions, especially his material opulence, his money. This is a special favor of the Lord toward a sincere devotee. If a sincere devotee wants Krishna above everything, but at the same time is attached to material possessions, which hinder his advancement in Krishna consciousness, by tactics, the Lord takes away all his possessions. Here Shukracharya says that this dwarf brahmachari would take away everything. Thus indicates that the Lord will take away all one's material possessions and also one's mind. Wow. Means one's mind is not there then in the Maya, in illusion or in sense gratification. Mind is also taken away by Krishna. As a mercy factor for the devotees who are really surrendered. If one delivers his mind to the lotus feet of Krishna, one can naturally sacrifice everything to satisfy. Although Bali Maharaj was a devotee, he was attached to material possessions, and therefore the Lord, being very kind to him, showed him special favor by appearing as Lord Vaman to take away all his material possessions and his mind as well. So Bali Maharaj is a devotee, but he had defeated Indra, he had kicked all the demigods out, he had taken over their planets, and now he's performing Ashwamedh Yajna to make sure he maintains his prosperity. And at that time, Lord Vamandev showed up to take away everything, to give him. Actually, Bali Maharaj gets much more than what he loses materially. That's a mercy of the Lord. But to come to that level, Bali Maharaj had to go through a lot. Tribhi krameramim alokan vishwakaya kramishyati sarvasvam vishnave dattva mood vartishyase katham. You have promised to give him 3 steps of land in charity, but when you give it, he will occupy the 3 worlds. You are a rascal. You do not know what a great mistake you have made. After giving everything to Lord Vishnu, you will have no means of livelihood. How then shall you live? Bali Maharaj might argue that he had promised only 3 steps of land, but Shukracharya, being a very learned Brahmin, immediately understood that this was a plan of Hari, who had falsely appeared as a brahmachari. The words Muda Vartishyase Katham reveal that Shukracharya was a Brahmin of the priestly class. So priestly class means Smarta Brahmins, or they're not devotees, but they are the Brahmins, and combination of goodness and passion, because they are interested in receiving money. Of course, they take dhan, but if you're attached to dhan, then that is wrong. Such priestly Brahmins are mostly interested in receiving remuneration from the disciples. Therefore, when Shukracharya saw that Bali Maharaj had risked all of his possessions, he understood that this would cause havoc not only to the king but also to the family of Shukracharya, who was dependent on Maharaj Bali's mercy. This is the difference between a Vaishnav and a Smartha Brahman. A Smartha Brahman is always interested in material profit, whereas a Vaishnav is interested only in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From the statement of Shukracharya, it appears that he was in all respects a Smartha Brahman, interested only in personal gain. So that's all he was thinking, that Bali Maharaj, how will you live? Or in his heart, he must be thinking, how will I live? And same thing as we read during Prahlad Maharaj's pastime, those were the sons of Shukracharya, Shanda and Amarka, who were the teachers of Prahlad Maharaj, and they were living off of the money received from Hiranyakashipu. And that's why they were just teaching whatever Hiranyakashipu told them to teach to all their sons, especially Prahlad Maharaj. So they were not teaching him the right self-realization topics. But because they were Smartha Brahmins or they wanted money, so they would think whatever the king told them. That's not a real Brahman actually. Kramatu gam padakena dvitiyena divam vibhav kham cha kayena mehta tarti yasya kuto gatihi. Vamandev will first occupy the three worlds with one step. Then he will take the second step and occupy everything in outer space. And then he will expand his universal body to occupy everything. Where will you offer him the third step? So Shukracharya could see what's going to happen in the future. Shukracharya wanted to tell Bali Maharaj how he would be cheated by Lord Vamandev. You have promised 3 steps, he said, but with only 2 steps, all your possessions will be finished. Then how then will you give him a place for his third step? Shukracharya did not know how the Lord protects his devotees. The devotee must risk everything in his possession for the service of the Lord, but he is always protected and never defeated. By materialistic calculations, Shukracharya thought that Bali Maharaj would under no circumstances be able to keep his promise to the brahmachari, Lord Vamandev. And the thing is, if he did not keep a promise, say something and don't keep it, we go to hell. That is simple as that. Nishthamte narke manye hiya pradatu pratishrutam pratishrutasya yonishaha pratipadetum bhava. You will certainly be unable to fulfill your promise. And I think that because of this inability, your eternal residence will be in hell. So that is another instruction for us. If we make a promise, we should keep it. Nowadays, we say so many things which don't really mean it and have no desire to keep that word. And we think we just got away. But somebody is keeping a note of whatever we say, whatever we do, whatever even whatever thoughts we have. Somebody is keeping a note. And not just somebody. In Ajamil's case, we saw so many people are keeping a note of everything. So Shukracharya further says, Na tad danam prashasanti yena vrittir vipatyate danam yagyastapah karma loke vrittim mato yataha. Learned scholars do not praise that charity which endangers one's own livelihood. Charity, sacrifice, austerity, and fruitive activities are possible for one who is competent to earn his livelihood properly. They are not possible for one who cannot maintain himself. Means to give charity also, one has to be very careful. Don't just give everything. Dharmaya yashase arthaya kamaya sujanaya cha panchada vibhajan vittam iham utra cha modate. Therefore, one who is in full knowledge should divide his accumulated wealth in 5 parts: for religion, for reputation, for opulence, for sense gratification, and for the maintenance of his family members. Such a person is happy in this world and the next. So there are different scriptures actually, and it depends what scriptural injunction is fit for us. Because Prabhupada quotes Rupa Goswami in the purport. Let's see. The Shastras enjoin that if one has money, one should divide all that he has accumulated into 5 divisions. 1 for religion, 1 part for reputation, 1 for opulence, 1 for sense gratification, and 1 part to maintain the members of his family. At present, however, because people are bereft of all knowledge, they spend all their money for the satisfaction of their family. And basically, it just gives them sense gratification. Srila Rupa Goswami taught us by his own example by using 50% of his accumulated wealth for Krishna, 25% for his own self, and 25% for the members of his family. So Rupa Goswami, he didn't go for 5 parts, he went for 3. So 50% for the service of Krishna. Simple as that. So 25 for himself, for the emergencies in old age, and 25% he gave to the family members, whoever the family members were. Of course, in the end, Rupa Goswami didn't even keep that 25% for himself. He gave it all away. And most of the money he gave us to bribe the jailer to let Sanatan Goswami go from the jail, from his captivity. One's main purpose should be to advance in Krishna consciousness. This will include dharma, artha, and kama. However, because one's family members expect some profit, one should also satisfy them by giving them a portion of one's accumulated wealth. This is a Shastric injunction. So family members, of course, one has his duties towards his elder parents or grandparents and brothers, sisters, children, wife. So one should take care of them also. Atrapi bharva chargitam shanu me asur sattama satyam momiti yat proktam yannetyaha nritam hitat. One might argue that since you have already promised, how can you refuse? O best of the demons, just take from me the evidence of the Bhagavad-Gita Shruti, which says that a promise is truthful, preceded by the word Om, and untruthful if not. So one Shruti somewhere, of course, Shukracharya is a great learned scholar, also he knows, and it says if you don't say Om before saying something or before promising, that word doesn't mean anything. So basically, he's saying you didn't say Om when you promised Lord Vamandev that you will give him 3 paces of land, so you just can go back on your word, no problem. Satyam pushpa phalam vidyad atma vrikshasya giyate vrikshaya jivati tanna syad nritam moolam atmana. The Vedas enjoin that the factual result of the tree of the body is the good fruits and flowers derived from it. But if the bodily tree does not exist, there is no possibility of factual fruits and flowers. Even if the body is based on untruth, there cannot be factual fruits and flowers without the help of the bodily tree. It means you need money to maintain your body, and without the body, you cannot do anything. So you need money. And you're giving away everything to Vamandev. This shloka explains that in relation to the material body, even the factual truth cannot exist without a touch of untruth. Or that's also, material body is untruth, so got to take care of it. Mayavadis say Brahm Satya Jagan Mithya. The spirit soul is truth and the external energy is untruth. The Vaishnava philosophers, however, do not agree with the Mayavadi philosophy. Even for the sake of argument, the material world is accepted as untruth. The living entity entangled in the illusory energy cannot come out of it without the help of the body. Without the help of the body, one cannot follow a system of religion, nor can one speculate on philosophical perfection. Therefore, the flower and fruit, pushpa phalam, have to be obtained as a result of the body. Without the help of the body, the fruit cannot be gained. The Vaishnava philosophy therefore recommends yukta vairagya. It is not that all attention should be diverted for the maintenance of the body, but at the same time, one's bodily maintenance should not be neglected. So we have to yukta vairagya. It says yukta vairagya, not just vairagya, yukta vairagya. And one has to be intelligent enough to see the body is also maintained, although body is false, but at the same time, spiritual practices are also good. And to perform spiritual practices, one needs a healthy body. As long as the body exists, one can thoroughly study the Vedic instructions, and thus at the end of life, one can achieve perfection. This is explained in Bhagavad-Gita, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Everything is examined at the time of death. Therefore, although the body is temporary, not eternal, one can take from it the best service and make one's life perfect. So to keep the body, you need money. Shukracharya is basically saying. Tad yatha vriksha unmula shushyat vartate achira evam nashta narata sadhya atma shushenna sanchaya. When a tree is uprooted, it immediately falls down and begins to dry up. Similarly, if one does not take care of the body, which is supposed to be untruth, in other words, if the untruth is uprooted, the body undoubtedly becomes dry. In this regard, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Prapanchit Katya Buddhya. One who rejects things without knowledge of the relationship to Krishna is incomplete in his renunciation. When the body is engaged in the service of the Lord, one should not consider the body material. Sometimes the spiritual body of the spiritual master is misunderstood. But Srila Rupa Goswami instructs, Prapanchikatya Buddhya. The body fully engaged in Krishna's service should not be neglected as material. One who does neglect it is false in his renunciation. If the body is not properly maintained, it falls down and dries up like an uprooted tree from which flowers and fruits can no longer be obtained. The Vedas therefore enjoin the purport, it's a long text, Sanskrit. The purport is that activities performed with the help of the body for the satisfaction of the absolute truth, Om Tat Sat, are never temporary, although performed by the temporary body. Indeed, such activities are everlasting. Therefore, the body should be properly cared for. Because the body is temporary, not permanent, one cannot expose the body to being devoured by a tiger or killed by an enemy. All precautions should be taken to protect the body. Just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained someplace, the tree of life. So the tree of the life, that's like in a tree we see. So it has three parts, the roots, the trunk, and the crown. So the root of the tree of life is our spiritual practices. The trunk of the tree of life is our physical, material body. And the crown of the tree is what service we can do to others by giving them shade or flowers or fruits in terms of spiritual help one can render to the others. But that can only happen if the root is strong, which is our spiritual practice is strong, but at the same time, if the trunk is strong, nicely taken care of. So that doesn't mean we have to go to the gym and just do some workout every day and make muscles. If one can, little bit, that's okay, just to keep the body fit. But body has to be kept fit also. So one has to make sure he's doing everything properly, both keep the body fit, spiritual practices nicely so the roots are strong, and then one should give spiritual shelter to others to help them grow spiritually. Text 41. Paragariktam apurnam vaksharam yat tadomiti yat kinchidomiti bruyat ten richyat vepuma bhikshave sarvamo kurvan nalam kamen chatmane. The utterance of the word Om signifies separation from one's monetary assets. In other words, by uttering this word, one becomes free from attachment to money because his money is taken away from him. To be without money is not very satisfactory, for in that position, one cannot fulfill one's desires. In other words, by using the word Om, one becomes poverty-stricken. So it should not be just chanting Om just like that. Especially when one gives charity to a poor man or beggar, one remains unfulfilled in self-realization and in sense gratification. So one gives them both. So this is Shukracharya's comments or logic, whatever he's giving. Maharaj Bali wanted to give everything to Vamandev, who had appeared as a beggar. But Shukracharya, being Maharaj Bali's familial spiritual master, means in the family, in the line of seminal succession, could not appreciate Maharaj Bali's promise. Shukracharya gave Vedic evidence that one should not give everything to a poor man. Rather, when a poor man comes for charity, one should untruthfully say, whatever I have given you. I have no more. It is not that one should give everything to him. Actually, the word Om means Om Tat Sat, the supreme truth. Omkar is meant for freedom from attachment to money because money should be spent for the purpose of the Supreme, not for us. The tendency of the modern civilization is to give money in charity to the poor. Such charity has no spiritual value because we actually see that although there are so many hospitals and other foundations and institutions for the poor, according to the three modes of material nature, class of poor man is always destined to continue. So no matter how many charities we open, hospitals or other organizations, people will be poor because of their destiny. This doesn't mean we should not have compassion for them, but we should have compassion properly situated. Even though there are so many charitable institutions, poverty has not been driven from human society. Therefore, it is recommended here, Bhikshave Sarvam Om Kurvan Nalam Kamena Chatmane. One should not give everything to the beggars among the poor. The best solution is that of the Krishna consciousness movement. This movement is always kind to the poor, not only because it feeds them, but also because it gives them enlightenment by teaching them how to become Krishna conscious. We are therefore opening hundreds and thousands of centers for those who are poor, both in money and in knowledge, to enlighten them in Krishna consciousness and reform their character by teaching them how to avoid illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling, which are the most sinful activities and which cause people to suffer life after life. So there are so many repercussions by engaging in these sinful activities. It's not like once the body is gone, all these activities are gone, no more reaction there. Well, then actually that is when the reactions start. So Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness or ISKCON is doing this greatest service to the society by providing knowledge, providing food, money for the poor. Poor means not just materially poor, poor means spiritually poor. The best way to use money is to open such a center where all may come, live, and reform their character. They may live very comfortably without denial of any of the body's necessities, but they live under spiritual control, and thus they live happily and save time for advancement in Krishna consciousness. If one has money, it should not be squandered away on nothing. It should be used to push forward the Krishna consciousness movement, so that all of human society will become happy, prosperous, and hopeful of being promoted back home, back to God. The Vedic mantra in this regard reads as follows: Paragva etadriktam. Okay, Prabhupada didn't give the purport on that. That means making money is not wrong, but wasting that money on our own is not right. So one should use that money to push forward the Krishna consciousness movement. Preach to, as it was mentioned earlier, to have a nice deity worship, to give prasadam to people, and let everybody have a chance to become Krishna conscious. Athaitat purnam bhyatmam yaccha netya nirtam vacha sarvam netya nirtam bruya sadushkirti shvasan mrita. Therefore, the safe course is to say no. Although it is falsehood, it protects one completely. It withdraws the compassion of others towards oneself, and it gives one full facility to collect money from others for oneself. Nonetheless, if one always pleads that he has nothing, he is condemned for his dead body while living, or while still breathing, he should be killed. So Shukracharya wanted Bali Maharaj to say no to Amandev. Even if it is lie, don't worry, it's okay. Beggars always present themselves as possessing nothing, and this may be very good for them, because in this way they are assured of not losing their money and of always drawing the attention and compassion of others for the sake of collection. But this is also condemned, actually. If one purposely continues this professional begging, he is supposed to be dead while breathing. Or according to other interpretations, such a man of falsity should be killed while breathing. The Vedic injunctions in this regard is as follows: Athaitat purnam abhyatamam. If one continuously poses himself as possessing nothing and collects money by begging, he should be killed. The Vedas are so strict. But so many people do that. Not just the beggars on the street. So many people. They say, oh, I have no money. And then they borrow money with the false promise that I'll pay you back, and he never pays back, and he has no intention of paying back anyway. Now, where is that person going to go? How condemned that life is. And here it is said, is as good as dead. He's as good as dead. Strishu narma vivahecha vrityarthe prana sankate go brahmana arte hinsayam nanritam syad jugupsitam. In flattering a woman to bring her under a control, in joking, in a marriage ceremony, in earning one's livelihood when one's life is in danger, in protecting cows and Brahminical culture, or in protecting a person from an enemy's hand, falsity is never condemned. So as I said, the Vedic scriptures are for, every scripture is for a different person. And the idea is to make progress. So it's not that one who is spiritually advanced, he does all this untruth things. He speaks untruth, false or lies, just for the sake of it. So one has to learn how to use this knowledge. That is wisdom. That is real wisdom. And by mercy of Krishna, Bali Maharaj had the real wisdom how to use the knowledge of the scriptures properly in the service of Krishna. So thus ends the 19th chapter of 8th canto. Lord Vamandev begs charity from Bali Maharaj. And tomorrow we can start the next chapter. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble
Hare
obeisance.
Krishna. Please accept
Very
mine.
nice, very nice purpose, Prabhuji, and a lot of realization actually. So one point where which really strike me is that Lord, who is so merciful towards his devotee, if he is very pleased, then he will not only take away the material positions, but along with that, he will take away the material mind also. So that is something like I understood that if the mind, if the Lord will take away the material positions, but if the mind is still in the material world, then definitely the devotee or the soul will be still not happy. But both, if the Lord will take away both, then definitely there's nothing to lament. So this is what something very deep. And moreover, I understood one thing, that Lord was very merciful towards Bali Maharaj, because that is the reason he took away everything from him. It is along with the pride, he took away everything because he was very merciful to him. So in a way, it is not that to punish him because of his pride, but it is to bless him rather. This is what I understood. Prabhuji, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, definitely. This was his blessings, mercy, and to draw him closer. And when you said take away the mind, because he just gives the devotee a chance to engage his mind in the service of Krishna. So this is all his mercy. Everything is his mercy. And
so
that is why Bali Maharaj,
from...
that's why Bali Maharaj is one of the Mahajans. 12 Mahajans, Bali Maharaj is one. Although he was a demon, born in a demon family. But he is considered a Mahajan.
So from here also there is something to learn, that we shouldn't lament that our upbringing was not good or we were born into such and such families. But that shouldn't be any excuse, because if we want to endeavor in the spiritual path, Lord will create such kind of environment for us. So we shouldn't.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because
for him nothing is impossible.
Yes, actually there's a very common attitude to blame on the external things for that if someone asks that why I not been able to grow, then we mostly have the tendency to say that my family, because of this disturbance, this, that, lot of reasons we give. So from all these things and then all the stories, we can understand that being born in the demoniac family as well, Prahlad Maharaj or be it Bali Maharaj, they were so highly elevated. So
Yep.
So much to...
And what kind of excuse we can have? Look at Prahlad Maharaj. His father, biggest terrorist of the whole universe, tried to kill him. Nobody is doing that to us.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So we don't have any excuse.
True, Prabhuji. And also, like now it is little clear, because earlier whenever we hear from the purport of Srila Prabhupada that if the Lord is pleased, very much pleased to his devotees, then he will take away the material position. Then somewhere down the line, that fear comes. How will I sustain? Like if the Lord will take away everything. But today, in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada added that mind part also. So because that is materially we are thinking from the material point of view, the mind is because of all that. So that is why we have the fear. But when the Lord will take over it, then definitely will be totally purified and then will remain, situated in that fully spiritual position, then there won't be any fear. And then that point of time, all such thoughts will definitely not come. So this is like clear today only for me, actually, Prabhuji.
Yeah, that's nice.
Thank you so
That's
much,
nice.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, man.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.